The Daleks, Doctor Who's most iconic villains, appearing in some of its most notable stories from both the classic and revived eras of the show, including the 6th episode of Series 1 of the revival, Dalek. A story that has gone down as one of the greatest Dalek stories of all time, up there alongside fan favourites such as The Power of the Daleks, Genesis of the Daleks, and Remembrance of the Daleks. This story would set the template for how the Daleks would be handled in the Russell T Davies era, the first one, and the story that all future Dalek stories would be compared in the revival going forward. It even inspired future stories such as Into the Dalek and Resolution, with the ideas of the Doctor perhaps being a good Dalek, or a single Dalek causing havoc both inside and outside of its shell, killing multiple people as easily as an army of them could do. As mentioned in those stories, as well as stories like Victory of the Daleks, one or just a few Daleks are just as, if not more devastating than an army. The story that followed Dalek was The Long Game, and whilst it doesn't have as good of a reputation as its predecessor or successor story Father's Day, it is notable for showing an example of the Doctor leaving behind a world, or in this case, a space station and the world that it's serving, in a state of things are supposed to be getting better after the events of that story where they defeat the big bad, in that story's case, the mighty Jagrafess. But as we reveal in a sequel story to both it and Dalek, when the Doctor returns 100 years later, the consequences of their actions are on full display. Not every time the Doctor leaves somewhere do things work out for the best. Enter my favourite story from Series 1, and after the Day of the Doctor, my favourite story of the revival, and after that and Remembrance of the Daleks, my third favourite story of the entire show, and easily Christopher Eccleston's strongest story as the Ninth Doctor. Whilst I think his best performance is in Dalek, this is the Ninth Doctor's best story. It's also my favourite from writer Russell T Davies, and the best of both his eras as showrunner. And that is, of course, Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways. Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways serves as the finale to the first series of the revival of Doctor Who and the 27th season overall. The production team did not know if they would get a second series, so everything was on the table for this first series, including the second appearance of the Doctor's most famous enemies, the Daleks, as the big bad of the series finale, after serving as an overarching series foe following the events of Dalek and references to the Time War, which they were the ones to fight the Time Lords in. The series being 13 episodes long, so these act as episodes 12 and 13. So following episode 11, Boomtown, the Doctor and Rose and Captain Jack Harkness, played by, well, we won't mention them, and also same for the actor playing Mickey Smith. And after another adventure or two, they are then mysteriously transmatted out of the TARDIS to a game station, which is revealed to be a revamped Satellite 5 in the year 200,100, and they are made to take part in early 21st century game shows, but with a deadly twist. If you lose the game, you die. Or as it's revealed, transmatted to a Dalek ship and then turned into a Dalek. So, sort of still dying. The Doctor and Captain Jack manage to escape their games along with help from Linda, that's Linda with a Y not an I, but they're unable to save Rose from being the weakest link and killed by the android. So with a nothing left to lose attitude, the Doctor then storms floor 500 with Jack and Linda to try and get some answers out of them and work out what the heck is going on. Eventually, they discover that Rose and the other contestants were transported across space, and also the TARDIS is also there in Archive 6. However, where has Rose been transmitted to, and who has been doing the transmitting, including of the Doctor and his companions, and the TARDIS? Well, it turns out Satellite 5's controller, who is hooked in to the system was able to see the Doctor and was able to bring them and their companions to Satellite 5, but had to hide them in the game so that their masters, who monitor transmissions but don't watch the games, she puts them in there. However, that is also quite dangerous because, as I mentioned, these games are pretty dangerous. And these new masters are scared of the Doctor, so she hopes that through the Doctor, he's able to defeat them and free humanity. And these new masters are, of course, revealed to be the Daleks, a new species of Dalek made mostly from humans, the humans from the game show, and other humans from across the fourth great bound and beautiful human empire. As it's revealed, the Emperor of the Daleks survived the Time War, damaged but alive, and through converting humans into Daleks, he was able to create a new mass army of them, an enormous, gigantic new Dalek species of around 500,000 Daleks. And this being a new invasion force to invade Earth. Not long after the Doctor patches into their communications, the Daleks realise they're rumbled, and when the Doctor declares that he's coming to get Rose and not surrendering to the Daleks, they put their plan into action. To quote Mr. TARDIS, they flip out. The cliffhanger to Bad Wolf is not for the Doctor or Rose, it's for the Daleks. Because the Doctor is coming to get Rose, and the audience know it's going to be okay because the Doctor said so, which makes the Daleks flip out, and they start their invasion plan a bit sooner than probably they expected. They knew that they were going to do it soon, but they're putting it into fast track mode now. Now, Bad Wolf is the weaker part of the two episodes, but it still holds a lot of really good stuff. Depending when you watch the story, the game show stuff can be either relevant or a bit outdated or a bit of both. As the game show is sort of and whilst they may have seemed to age poorly initially after a couple of years, they then become scaringly relevant once again several more years later, as Mr. TARDIS has also said in both his original Bad Wolf review and then his Dalek December one. I think they've captured the feel of the game shows from the time very well and give them a pretty good dusty edge and dangerous add-ons with the threat of death from losing the show or breaking a rule, or in the case of Captain Jack, they just end up working round to it. And yeah, I'd say a bit of a deadly flair to them. And I still think you can watch these game shows, even if you don't really know what they are, or if they're not that relevant anymore, or if they've been changed a bit over the years, that you could still kind of get the sense of what the story is doing and what the commentary is, as well as also the danger of said activities, because the game shows have been changed enough to fit the story's purposes that it still remains fairly relevant on top of the commentary. Also, throughout Series 1, there has been the phrase Bad Wolf bounced about in almost every episode up to this point, and Boomtown is the first time they actually directly reference it. In the characters directly mention that they've noticed this popping about. Bad Wolf is where they start to realise, right, something is up with this. What's going on? And they have to try and find the mystery. Since the corporation running Satellite 5 in the game shows is the Bad Wolf Corporation, so what's going on there? The Emperor Dalek denies knowing anything about it in the next episode. So who or what is Bad Wolf? Well, it's a production company based in Wales making Doctor Who and other shows, such as His Dark Materials and the Hating Susie series Billy Piper's doing. I Hate Susie, I think? Okay, for real, we'll find out more about Bad Wolf in the next episode. But it's a very interesting mystery for this episode and for part 2, which is building up from the mysterious phrase that's been presented and hinted at throughout the series. Russell T Davies is so good at doing that. He's even started the next series as one in this episode as well. They mentioned Torchwood at one point, which puts Boomtown into perspective that Captain Jack was in Cardiff 2006 at the same time his future self was running Torchwood. I guess his future self stood way out of the way during those events. The parting of the ways is when things get really interesting, as after the Doctor and Captain Jack arrive on the Dalek ship and rescue Rose, they then go out to meet the new Dalek Empire, only to then discover that the Emperor of the Daleks is the one responsible for continuing the Dalek race through converting the humans into Daleks. Which, as the Doctor says, the Daleks then have more hatred of themselves. They hate their own existence because of what they are. They're not pure Daleks. They're converted from humans rather than Kaleds. Not pure, so they hate their own existence, much like the Metaltron Dalek did when it was not becoming a Dalek. But whilst the Metaltron ended up not being able to live with itself, these Daleks then pushed their hatred towards humanity further because of the self-hatred towards themselves. Alongside hiding in silence, driving them a bit mad, as they end up worshipping the Emperor Dalek as a god, the Emperor Dalek himself believing he is the god of all Daleks. Then this shows a more dangerous side to the Daleks, as well as their already dangerous tendencies to exterminate all other life forms. That they hate themselves so much, it increases their hate and desire to kill. As the Doctor says, that's what makes them deadlier than ever. Returning to Satellite 5, the Doctor then attempts to build a Delta Wave in order to destroy the Dalek fleet once and for all. The humans then volunteer to obstruct the Daleks who are planning to attack the station to try and get to the Doctor. Although initially only the top 6 to 7 floors 494 to 500, the Daleks then eventually start moving downstairs to the bottom, including floor 0, which has a whole host of trapped humans, and many people aren't able to evacuate the space station despite the call to. Earth is unable to be warned because they suspend the TV license, so the planet is stuck there, meaning the Daleks are free to go and invade the planet when they choose to. This means the Doctor realises that Rose can't be there, and he sends her home back in the TARDIS, much to her distraught, whilst Captain Jack leads an army of human resistance to fight off the Daleks as they try to get to the Doctor. And whilst Linda is put on monitoring duties, sadly she doesn't quite make it out either alongside the other humans. This portion of the story shows how ruthless the Daleks are. We already saw how ruthless one Dalek was in Dalek. Now, Parting of the Ways shows us what an army is like. This is the same type of army that would have attacked the Time Lords in the Time War, and now it's coming to under-defensive humans. Even when they aim for the Eye Stalk or use the other defences, the Daleks are able to turn them off or have their shields up in order to protect them, and regular bullets aren't very good against them. It's only a few lucky shots, or one we see at least, that actually do any good, and also the android sending them elsewhere. But that eventually leads them to floor 0 to then wipe out all the humans on that floor in possibly one of, if not the most darkest Dalek kill scenes, where a couple of Daleks go down to that floor and just exterminate every single carrying human being, including Roderick, who was a minor antagonist in the previous episode. It is both so Dalek, but also so dark. I'm surprised this episode got a PG. If this was made nowadays, it'd be a 12. In both this story and Dalek, the Daleks are merciless killing machines, and this story amplifies that, as we see in the Floor 0 extermination scene. No one is left alive. No one's left alive in this whole space station besides our main character. Well, not even all our main characters. 2 of them. Heck, even then, it's not even an unscathed survival for them. This is the 9th Doctor's The Doctor Falls. But whilst the 12th Doctor stayed on the space station to protect the humans, the 9th Doctor is trying to instead use the space station as his advantage to destroying the Daleks. But he gets the moral dilemma he faced back in the Time War. Well, until the decision was changed, but Day of the Doctor tackles that, and as far as the Ninth Doctor is concerned, he did wipe out both Daleks and Time Lords during the Time War. He's forgotten about the saving Gallifrey stuff. So, believing that he has wiped out both the Time Lords and the Daleks in the past, the Doctor has now been given the option to destroy the Daleks, but as both the Emperor Dalek and Captain Jack point out, the Delta Wave would destroy all life on Earth as well as the Dalek fleet. The range covers all life across both. So the Doctor is then faced with the choice of killing both species again, or letting the Daleks win. This is a really good moral predicament, and whilst it isn't focused on too much early on, it is brought up and then it becomes the focus later. Sadly for the Doctor, everybody else is killed, including Captain Jack, but he is able to finish it on time as he is surrounded by the Daleks, and we come to the final decision. Ultimately, the Doctor, after believing he's destroyed his own people and the Daleks before, back in this situation, hands on the lever to push it down and to destroy the Daleks, but also the humans. He can't do it. He accepts defeat because of his emotions. The Doctor is someone who cares. It's in his name. The Doctor, the man who cares. The man who saves lives, as this would be brought up a few times in the Matt Smith era. That this is his character, whichever incarnation it is. Especially for this one, who is coming right off the bat of the Time War and believing what he did at the end to end it. And so he accepts defeat. The Daleks have won. But this story also has one of the best uses of Deus Ex Machina's being earned. See, whilst Rose Tyler went back to Earth, she then told Mickey and her mum Jackie that things were about her life and how things were better, and that she can't leave the Doctor in danger. She needs to go back and help him. And also, as Mr. TARDIS mentions, she brings up the point of Series 1 of the Doctor influencing other people to be better, to be their best selves, and to help save the day. As seen with Rose herself twice in the series before, both in her title episode Rose and also in Dalek, which we previously talked about. But other characters who have been inspired to save the day include Jabe, Charles Dickens, Gwyneth, Harriet Jones, Mickey Smith himself, Kathika, who we also touched upon, Pete Tyler, Nancy taking responsibility for Jamie, aka the Empty Child, and whilst Boomtown doesn't really have a clear person inspired to help the Doctor, the TARDIS does decide to give Margaret Slevine another chance of being good, so perhaps maybe the TARDIS could be argued to be the Boomtown character who's inspired by the Doctor, and it therefore gives Margaret a chance to do the same in her next life. And even Captain Jack and the other humans on floor 500 are putting their lives out for the Doctor in order to stop this even more dangerous threat. And Rose eventually inspires Mickey and later Jackie to help her to get back to the Doctor after seeing the words Bad Wolf across the Powell estate as sort of a message, as a way to get back. She uses the heart of the TARDIS, as shown in Boomtown, as a way to try and get control to take the TARDIS back to Satellite 5. Eventually, after they manage to get it open, she looks into the heart of the TARDIS, and it does take them back to Satellite 5. Here is where things come to a head. It turns out Rose looking into the heart of the TARDIS makes her the Bad Wolf. She then uses the words from the Bad Wolf Corporation and spreads them across the timeline from across Series 1 as a message to help her get back there to Satellite 5 in order to save the Doctor from extermination. Using her powers, she's able to kill all of the Daleks, including the Emperor. Well, that's why we haven't seen the Emperor Dalek since. He's dead, and they haven't gotten another one yet. And also, she's able to save Captain Jack as well. She brings him back to life. But at the cost of her own life, she is dying. When the Doctor realises that she can now see what she's seeing, he decides to save her, and at the cost of his own life. And This is some of the most beautiful stuff of the episode, is when the Doctor, after now being saved, he now needs to save Rose, but again at the cost of his own life. So the Ninth Doctor does die, but not in the way he was expecting. After saving Rose, he takes the TARDIS energy out of her and then puts it back into the TARDIS. He takes her into the TARDIS and they leave, sadly leaving Captain Jack behind, but it's okay, he's got his vortex manipulator, so he can go and make Torchwood. Also, he's immortal now. The final scene of this episode is the best regeneration scene of any classic series story. Sorry, Caves of Androzani. Sorry, iconic 10th Planet first regeneration scene. Sorry, emotional end of time regeneration. Hands down, it's this one. It's absolutely fantastic. Pun intended. The Ninth Doctor is okay with it. He saved Rose. He knows she's okay. But he knows he has to regenerate in order to survive. He has to go on living, but he has to be somebody else. But this series showed the character journey of the Ninth Doctor. Yeah, we started maybe a little bit later into this incarnation's life, which leaves room for expanded media and other stories prior to meeting Rose to take place. And of course, there'll be other expanded media stories with Rose, with Adam, with Jack, Mickey and Jackie taking place in between. But in terms of this 13-episode series, the character journey is complete. The Doctor is healed after the events of the Time War, and whilst other events later down on the line would reveal other revelations and help him come to terms more with what happened, this, in terms of the Ninth Doctor, is solidified, finalised, and concluded in a very beautiful final scene that was filmed after the commissioning of Series 2 and added on as a last-minute extra, as the thought was if they didn't get Series 2, then the Doctor and Rose would just go off to do more adventures. And had Series 2 been made with Christopher Eccleston, they would have maybe touched upon Rose possibly dying or being affected by the TARDIS energy. Which, interesting take. I'm not sure if I would have been as big of a fan on that, but interesting way to go down. As much as I would have liked another series with the Ninth Doctor, I do think this ending works really well and solidifies his character journey over the first series. It's a triumph. And whilst the Ninth Doctor does die, he goes out on a smile. He's reassuring Rose everything's fine. He's having a bit of a joke with her beforehand and sort of letting her know everything's going to be okay. As well as sort of introducing the regeneration to the new audiences, because this has just been the one series. New audiences who are tuning into this series may not know about it, but when they watch this series, even on repeats before later Doctor's regenerations to catch up to speed, like I did, we'd discover how the Doctor is able to change from one actor to another and be like one person and in terms of personality to another person with a different personality, but still retaining the core traits. And this one's handled really well and really beautifully. I'm getting quite emotional just talking about it, and it's not the first time this has happened. I've done this before in my own personal review on my Retro channel when I talked about this story, and also I believe in my ranking of the 2000s, mid to late 2000s stories, when I ranked this number one, where I got emotional about it again. It's just a beautiful scene. It's absolutely brilliant. I think maybe the music kind of helps as well. That's just really beautiful music. The regeneration scenes of all of the revival stories have top tier music scores, whether that's new music, unused music from other scenes repurposed, or brand new music for that specific scene. It's just, yeah, they've always been amazing. So with a smile on his face, Christopher Eccleston departs the series, and the Ninth Doctor regenerates into David Tennant's 10th Doctor, and we can be rest assured that both the universe in the story of Doctor Who and Doctor Who, the show, are in safe hands with our new leading actor. Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways is an incredible final story for the Ninth Doctor, an incredible Dalek story, and is an absolute major example of the success of both Series 1 and the first RTD era. Heck, the revival of the show overall. Several episodes this series, including Rose and Dalek, have proven that the show not only could work in the 21st century, but it was here to stay, especially after Series 2 was commissioned due to record-breaking viewing figures for Rose. So the adventures of the Doctor, now played by David Tennant, and Rose Tyler would continue, starting with the Christmas invasion. That's Christmas. Oh, that's another fantastic episode. Go watch that as well. That's the best post-regeneration story that people don't talk about that much, and is one of the best overall. But that's a topic for another day. It's both easy to understand why this story is so amazing, and yet there are several words that just can't describe it, especially part 2, especially towards the end. It's just absolutely amazing. The same things could be said for World Enough and Time and Doctor Falls. That finale just works on so many levels and is a fantastic way to round off the 12th Doctor's era, though he would get one more episode. This story is if Genesis of the Daleks and Decays of Androzani met up and then somehow became a hybrid and then became part of Series 1. It's, yeah, I'm trying to use that metaphor. This is such an amazing story. And in terms of the Daleks, they're at their best use in the revival. This and Dalek, they are at their absolute best. As fun as they're going to be in the next series when they turn up with their banter with the Cybermen. This finale has the Daleks at their pretty much darkest in the revival, and possibly even one of the darkest in the show overall, with their extreme hatred for other beings because they are self-hating, as well as their madness and believing the Emperor Dalek is a god, he himself believing he is such a god. And the brutality that they bring to exterminating the humans, and the way that basically all hope is lost until a 19-year-old from the Powder State comes back to save the day. The messaging and the points of this series, and particularly these 2 episodes, are clear, and they provide a thrilling and emotional series finale to an absolutely fantastic first series for Doctor Who in the 21st century and 27th season overall. It is absolutely one of the best of the show, and this story basically helps to solidify it. It may not be talked as much as other stories from the series or later stories in the revival or other Dalek stories, but it absolutely deserves all the praise it gets and all of the status it could get. It is absolutely amazing. Series 1 of Doctor Who really knew how to do the Daleks, and it really knew how to put them against Christopher Eccleston's 9th Doctor and his companions. They were 2 of the best written stories featuring the Daleks of the whole show, and the 2 best stories of Series 1. Sorry, Empty Child, You're Next, and then Father's Day. And bring out the best of the actors, especially Christopher Eccleston, and the best of their writers. Dalek is an excellent semi-adaptation of Jubilee, and Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways splendidly brings everything from that series that needed to be wrapped up into an epic, a nicely tied up package. The only real thing that's left out of that package is Torchwood, but again, that's for next series. As mentioned, Russell likes to set up some of his next series arcs a little in advance. And with that, we conclude our 2 videos on the 2 Series 1 Dalek stories, 2 of the best Dalek stories of the entire show, and the best 2 stories of Series 1, as I mentioned. And therefore being the 9th Doctor's best 2 stories. So, as Eccleston month draws to a close, I'd just like to say thank you all for watching, and to Christopher Eccleston, thank you for being the 9th Doctor. You were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you everybody for watching these videos about the Series 1 Dalek stories, and for all the other Eccleston month videos. Stay tuned for further videos on the Whoniversals, including Tennant month, coming later this year, the sequel to Eccleston month, as we'll be celebrating the 20th anniversary of the 10th Doctor and the 2nd anniversary, or 3rd anniversary, depending how you look at it, of the 14th Doctor. Allons-y. But until then, we've got plenty of other stuff to look forward to, including Season 2 of the Bad Wolf era, Series 15, Season 41, with the 15th Doctor. Get excited, people. So thank you once again for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.